So, podcasts and videos, very synonymous now and intertwined, and we are going to be finding out where the new opportunities are in this particular panel session that we've got coming up. This panel is going to be hosted by Matt Deegan from Podcast Discovery, so I'm going to invite Matt and his panel up, and Matt can make the introductions. So please give Matt and his panel a very warm welcome.
Hello everyone, I'm Matt Deegan. I'm a partner at Podcast Discovery. We're a full-service podcast marketing agency, and we work with people like Sky News and The Economist, BAFTA, Welcome Trust to help them grow their audiences and get more podcast downloads. But it's not just downloads anymore. I think if there's one conversation I've had over the last 12 months with potential clients and existing clients, video always is the thing they want to talk about. What do they have to do? Is it that important? Is it just clips? Is it full things? The rapidly changing nature of podcasting means that clients and customers and listeners consume podcasts in lots of different ways. Speaking of which, put your hands up if in the last week you have listened to a podcast in audio form. Okay, pretty good. A lot of good listeners here. Put your hands up if you have watched a podcast video on Spotify or YouTube, but kind of the full episode. Okay, slightly less. And put your hands up if you have seen a short form social clip on a platform like TikTok or Instagram. Okay. Lots too. So lots of people in the audience thinking about podcasts, consuming podcasts in lots of different ways. We've got a great panel to talk through these topics. Jarrett-Bryan is the Director of Digital at News Broadcasting. He spent time at The Sun before becoming Head of Features, Digital Editor, and latterly Head of Strategy. He became Head of Video for News UK in 2015 before taking his current role, Director of Digital for News Broadcasting last year, looking after brands like TalkSport and Times Radio. Tom Whitehurst, Head of Content at Goalhanger, the people behind The Rest is History and The Rest is Politics. He's responsible for all of their output across audio, video, and commercial, with a big, strong background in broadcast radio from Radio 1 and 1Extra. Molly Brown joined as an apprentice in 2016 before becoming an AV exec manager and now director, leading activity for brands like Money Supermarket, Quidco, and Flora. And Jarrett-Bryan is someone you might recognize from TV, currently the sports presenter on Channel 4 News. His TV career started with the 2012 Paralympics after a 25-year career playing wheelchair basketball. He runs his own production company, Blakademik, and hosts podcast too. Jarrett-Bryan's the coolest disabled in the world. Kind of round of applause for our panel. So, Tom, podcasts in their inception obviously were an audio-only affair. You're head of content for probably one of the biggest podcasting companies in the country. Why is video now the focus, or our focus?
Yeah, I think a couple of different reasons. Firstly, we just want to reach larger audiences, and so we have to go where the audiences are in the first place. Certainly one of the criticisms of the podcasting industry in the past has been that no one's really solved that discovery piece yet. But actually, YouTube has very well. So it's a platform that we've always wanted to engage with. It finds new audiences for us. And then I suppose what we'll come on to speaking more about, actually, it is really interesting for advertisers to be in that video space as well as just an audio one.
Derek, News UK's got some strong radio brands in TalkSport and Virgin Radio, Times Radio. Your speech brands are pretty YouTube focused. There's channels that do pretty well.
Well, we are so old school. We used to do podcasts and call them radio. In about 2018, we decided it would be fun to try and stick some cameras in our TalkSport studios and our Times Radio studios. And lo and behold, people actually started consuming those radio stations visually. I think TalkSport, Times Radio, and Talk they're smaller than Global and Bauer in radio terms. I think we're the biggest, in fact, we definitely are the biggest radio stations that are visualized in Britain today. TalkSport does about 35 million views a month. Same with Times Radio is about 40 million views on YouTube a month. And we now film from 6 a.m. to midnight. We've got a team of people with headphones on, inning and outing, anything anybody says about Manchester United or Arsenal, or we are just filling the whole time. I always say the lovely thing about doing the job I do at the moment is when I put my feet on my bedroom floor, we're making video, and when I kiss my wife goodnight, sometimes I kiss her goodnight, we're still making video. So we do 500 videos a week, 8 minutes long, minimum each. It's a bit of a machine, but we've got that production.
The scale of that's quite significant. We were talking earlier. How many people are involved in clipping and publishing?
So the clipping bit, which I call my publishing team, I have 42 people working across 7 days a week. They all sit, I'm going to make this sound really glamorous here, but they all sit with their headphones on, literally watching Simon Jordan arguing with Jim White every day. And every time something they think is a good topic, they'll cut it, they'll quickly title it, while their partner, who's also working with them, will be mopping up the next bit of content. Slightly Victorian sweatshop, but the audience is there. We now have 22 YouTube pages. We've got 13 TalkSport YouTube pages. Boxing is our second biggest. Saturday night, we were doing 500,000 views on a live stream, and we're doing about 250,000 views an hour for the Conor Benn fight. And sport is just the easiest thing to do. Times Radio, different beast, lots of politics, lots of global politics, lots of US politics as well, does really well.
So, Tom, thinking about podcasts, and Derek thinking about kind of on the radio side, are the listeners different to the viewers?
Yeah, very much so. We've almost built two entirely different audiences for the Rest is Politics US. So that's Catty Kay and Anthony Scaramucci. In the UK, we've used our own network to cross-promote it. We've shown it, we grew it, we incubated it on the Rest is Politics feed, then branched it out on its own. And it has an audience that looks very similar to the Rest is Politics. But on YouTube, probably double the amount of percentage-wise share of audience is now in the States. It's a slightly older audience in there. And most interestingly, that audience is watching it on their big TVs at home. So it's feet up, dinner on lap, put the Rest is Politics US on.
So we heard today quite a lot about YouTube being kind of a TV app, less than maybe 3 years ago we'd have talked about the mobile side. I mean, are people watching it like television?
I think so, yeah. Where they get to choose what they watch at any point. The discovery thing works for them to suggest what they want to next. We were talking about how subscribers doesn't really matter anymore in terms of the pages we've got.
And is that because the algorithm is highlighting content to users?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, therefore, we've had to think really carefully about packaging. We're not putting the same video on YouTube that we do on Spotify. We're working out what works for each platform and doing that. Repackaging. It's still the same sort of content. You're still watching the same episode at the heart of it. You might get a different trailer at the front. You might get a different thumbnail that's been A/B tested lots of times to work out what is going to make that click on more.
Derek, same for you? Different TalkSport listeners watching?
A lot of them are the same. There's a Venn diagram. Slightly younger on YouTube. We're very UK on TalkSport, very American on Times Radio. Chris, who's at the back there, tells a great story, which I think demonstrates the slight difference. Chris works in corporate comms, by the way. He had a young lad, a 19-year-old, come for a job interview, very nervous, came in, sat down. What do you like about News UK? What do you like? Well, I really like TalkSport. It's my favourite sort of YouTube channel. He goes, and do you ever listen to it on the radio? Slight moment pause where the young lad kind of looked like he was failing the interview somehow. Chris says to him, you do realise it's a radio station? He went, I thought it was a YouTube channel. And he's like, no, it's a radio station and a YouTube channel. So that sort of tells you, I love that story, because we have a whole raft of young lads who are, mostly lads, by the way, there are some females, but 90% men, who think TalkSport is a YouTube page, and that's fine. And we have the same thing about CTV. Our two biggest audiences now are mobile and living room television, not computer and tablet. They're about 30-40% each, because YouTube have massively pushed that, and we're leaning into it because everything we do now is longer form. We try and make stuff half an hour because we know that people are just coming in at night, and because the algorithm is so brilliant on YouTube, they'll just gobble that stuff up.
Tom, is The Rest is History, is The Rest is Politics, are they podcasts? Are they media brands? How do you see it?
Well, internally, we've started talking about them more as shows rather than podcasts, because it isn't just a sort of audio to video switch that we're doing at the moment. We will go wherever the audience goes, and so that is newsletters, that is live events, that is merch, if you want to get down to it. Anytime we can find the audience who love that content, that's where we'll go and sort of meet them. And so it's grown as IP, and we think about it like that. We wouldn't necessarily talk about it as IP to the listeners who love it. They still think about it as their show, it's their thing they want to listen to. But I think we have to. It's incumbent upon us to make those relationships go as deep as possible.
So it's hybrid audio, video, naturally both on the radio and the podcast side. Are historically both businesses, audio businesses from an advertising perspective, are commercial partners integrating with the video yet?
Yes, very much so. And
in what way?
It's been a step change for us. So let's take, for example, Guinness sponsoring the Rest is Football this season. And we would not have won that bid if we'd gone to them and said, do you just want the audio version of your ad playing against the podcast all season? What we were able to do is integrate them fully into the show. They have a section that they brand, so a branded segment, and we do a custom segment, which is the Raise Your Glass section of the show that they do, where the guys have a Guinness and cheers to a moment of the month that they really enjoyed. So that'll be Liverpool winning the title this month. And for Guinness, our pitch then isn't going to just the audio department in the agency, it's going to the brand partnerships part of the agency. That unlocks a massively different scale budget that we would be able to do. And also it's much more appealing, right? Because we can then take the content from the show, we can cut it up, we can put it on the socials, we can put some spend behind it. The team can see the hosts drinking out of Guinness glassware. We've sent nitrous surges to their house. It's just become part of the vernacular and the lexicon of the show now. We won it originally because we sent Guinness a video of Alan Shearer necking a pint of Guinness to show how much he loved it. You only have to go to his Instagram page to see how often he's having a pint. So it just made a lot more sense for them. It was more easily realised as, I get what this partnership looks like over the course of 9 months of the season.
Molly, are advertisers and your agency colleagues seeing podcasts as shows, as Tom was talking about it? Or is it still a little bit siloed? There's the audio team, there's a visual team.
Yeah, I think it's a slow-moving process, and I think what you mentioned about there being different parts of the agency that do different things, you have to make sure you're talking to the right person, and sometimes now that podcasts are audio and video, that might sit within a partnerships team rather than an audio-only team. But yeah, I think it's clients are more up for it than they were before, and the really exciting thing I think is podcasts or brands that had never looked at podcasts before, or not even audio, because they need people to see their brand, whether that's the right strategy or not. It's up to personal opinion, but some brands are so obsessed with their brand being visual in the hands of people, and now video podcasts mean that you can do that with podcasts too, and you couldn't with just an audio host read. Talk
to me about 1AV, because when we were talking, you were saying that broadcast quality is actually pretty important.
Yeah, so at we have a process called 1AV, which essentially, in short, we judge video based on a few principles that essentially mean something that is fit for TV. So I think these video podcasts are great, but I think podcasters need to think about investing in the equipment to ensure that it's of broadcast quality content. So the have that process. I'm sure lots of other agencies have something similar and call it a different name, and it's validated by research. So Thinkbox research recently, Context Matters, showed that actually brand metrics move better when in professionally created content. So you can't just slap a video on as a second thought. I think you need to think about the video at the same time as the audio.
Jordan, that is an interesting challenge, isn't it, for content creators, pretty new content creators. I mean, making audio was relatively easy. Suddenly you've got a huge amount of extra layers, video lighting, studios. Is that a challenge for new creators?
It is, because there are, first of all, costs that come with doing a production to the level that I agree we now need to see productions at. If you're 19 years old and you're starting a podcast, you can't afford two £1,000 mics and fancy lights and all these things which really take your podcast from good to really, really good. So the cost is the first challenge, I would say, for new content creators, but there are creative ways to get around that. Maybe you find a microphone or a light that doesn't cost £2,000, but it's how you light it and how you use it. And you get people that they say, it's the person that uses the tool, not the tool itself, that really brings the magic. So I think cost is the biggest thing, but I think if you've got a strong idea and you know who your audience is and who you're targeting, you'll soon get picked up by somebody that can then invest the money, that can then take your podcast to another level. So I think beyond cost, I think it's actually pretty simple.
Because also one of the things with podcasting originally was very low barriers to entry, democratization of media, anybody can do it or have a go at it. Do you think some of these, the way the market's changing, actually is bringing back some barriers for new people getting into the sector?
No. I think there'll always be difficulties and challenges to people coming into the game. There'll always be the plates will always move in terms of entry points into making digital content, video as well. But I go back to my earlier point. I think if you're very clear on this is what I want to talk about, this is the audience I'm trying to reach, I'm going to do the best I can with the production that I do have, there'll always be things that will come at you that will make it difficult. But I think if you're focused on this is my message, that's my audience, I'm getting there, you'll always get through.
Tom, some of your presenters are out and about a lot. Rory Stewart seems to be in a different country each time there's a new episode. Have you had to teach them to be self-shooting, multi-hyphenate presenters?
Yeah, we certainly have. I think Jordan is right. There's definitely that sort of the step change has needed to happen there, but it's not been a barrier to them doing it. Actually, we found that most of our hosts, they do a lot of the work for the show themselves, right? They're doing the research. They're keen to learn. They're keen to be a part of it. They wouldn't want to have one of my production team necessarily alongside them doing that for them. They like the independence, and we have been able to put together travel kits, right, that they can take anywhere in the world. Tiny, Insta-Link cameras that cost a couple of £100, not thousands of pounds. They can set them up wherever. A Gorilla Grip and a reasonable mic. It's actually not that difficult, and I think. Derek, you spoken about this before, about how it used to be a badge of honour for people to say, like, oh, I don't touch the tech, or no, I don't deal with that, that's other people's jobs. But
inexcusable now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's more encouraging. We like working with people who want to be like that as well.
And this might be changing, but I've always been told that with podcasts and video content, a lot of audience like the gritty and the raw feel of it. If it looks too polished, it looks like TV. It feels like radio. And a lot of younger people I know, because I've made the mistake of when I started Blakademik and making content, we were doing panel shows, we'd have like 8 cameras. People would come, I remember on our second episode of filming our debate show, somebody that worked in television at ITV, he was on the panel and he said, we don't have too many cameras for X Factor. At the time, they were the biggest program on TV. They were like, why have you got 99 cameras and 14 mics here? I just went over the top because I wanted to make it look really good. But the feedback I was getting was, forget all that. The best content creators now are often one man or one woman bands that just know what they're doing with a camera and a gimbal and can make it work.
I mean, I guess money quality can mean different things to different audiences. And I suppose particularly when you add in the social dimension and creating integrations that work on Instagram or TikTok, what are agencies, what do the advertisers want from content creators?
Yeah, I mean, I think podcasts are always going to be limited by the monthly downloads, so the people that tune in every month. But things like short-term video clips that you can push out across TikTok and Instagram, that's where the scale is. So that's really exciting for advertisers to be able to, get the regular listeners and hone in on that, but then be able to scale it out to more people using those short-term video clips.
And I suppose you've got kind of programmatic at one side, both audio and video, which isn't necessarily driven by the content as much, or the system kind of copes with that. I guess when it's further integrations, you can only deal with a small number of shows and podcasts. Is it all about bums on seats? Is it all about big numbers?
I think it's a difficult question because if you were judging a linear radio campaign or a digital audio campaign, you'd look at the reach number and you'd judge it based on that. Whereas podcasts are often a complement to that existing always-on layer, or they're working alone but to a different KPI that isn't reach as many people as possible. Maybe it's reach a really diverse community of people, and actually a podcast is going to be a lot better. It might be 100,000 people and not 1 million, but those 100,000 people are going to be more engaged than reaching the 1 million. So I think it just depends on what the brief is and what the client really wants to do.
Jordan.
And yeah, just to kind of pick up on that also, and to the title of this discussion, which is about new opportunities. I personally think the new opportunities are finding new audiences and groups of audiences that haven't been reached yet. So inadvertently, it's going to sound like a plug for my podcast, but it's not. I set up
wherever you get it.
yeah. Well, I actually said it now. I set up a podcast about 5 weeks ago, about a year in the planning. It's called Jordan Jarrett-Bryan's The World's Coolest Disabled. Share, subscribe, all that good stuff. But I planned it because I noticed that there was lots of content that was speaking to black communities and speaking to women and speaking to people from the LGBTQ community. I was like, well, why is there no content for people with disabilities? If I was to ask the audience now, can you name 3 podcasts of this content beyond the Paralympics that talks to disability? There's nothing. Yeah. Yet a quarter of the country are disabled. That doesn't even factor in carers, their parents, and people that know and care about them as well. So I started this podcast because I thought there was nothing there. I'm trying to talk to a particular community that are not being served with content, be it video or audio. We're growing, it's slow, but for me, the challenge from advertisers is to look into new audiences and new markets where people want to be served. There's a lot of people that want to talk about issues pertaining to disability, yet we just don't do it. So that's the challenge I would throw out to the advertising industry. Where are the new communities that aren't being spoken to? I'm on 79 different football podcasts. We don't need any more football podcasts. We're good for football.
Don't tell Derek that.
Sorry, I know you want that. Sorry. That's bad news for you. Sorry.
You never have
but there are new audiences and new communities out there that are not being served. That for me is the new challenge.
What's the way that content companies should speak to advertisers through agencies, maybe Molly, about if they've got a particular target audience that they cover really well? How do you get them interested?
Sorry, how do the
content companies get advertisers, maybe for more niche podcasts that haven't got necessarily the volume but have real resonance with their audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably comes back to measurement. So the TV, when we speak about TV and its quality, and that's why we put it to this fit for TV, that's because there's years of research on how well TV performs. So if video podcasts are what a brand wants to sell and a specific audience about a community, they need to research on how that works for brands. So I guess you need to get a brand on board first to do that. But I'm sure it will work because, like you said, if a quarter of the population isn't being spoken to, and now they are, they're going to listen when they hear an ad in that podcast because it's going to mean something to them more than when they hear it in their 78th football podcast.
That's right.
Derek, part of radio's success has been about big, broad audiences and trying to kind of keep people listening as long as possible. Interesting on your YouTube channel side, you're launching lots of individual channels for darts and for boxing. Is niche the way to go?
Definitely on YouTube. There's a simple rule with YouTube if anybody's setting up a channel is find 4 topics that your audience like and don't deviate out of them. I mean, literally, that's it. When we were joking about history earlier, like they love World War II and they love the Nazis, you can deviate a little bit, but there's certain topics that kind of, that's what the history audience, that genuinely, those 2 things, if you make videos about them, they'll do massive traffic. In football, Manchester United, Simon Jordan, we have 4 or 5 topics, so if we put a darts video on our main TalkSport page, it doesn't do that well, but start building a darts page, and that page will start flying, and every time we draw, and we launched our darts YouTube page just before the World Championships last year. We've had sponsors because they know what they're getting on there. We're growing it to about 10,000 subs. We're getting good views on it. So it's tricky to start on your YouTube page. It's terrifying if anybody wants to start doing it. When you get into that first 1,000 subs is horrible and you might not make it. But niche is quite good on YouTube. I keep talking about YouTube. We're on CTV and all these kind of things as well because we believe that you shouldn't all have your eggs in one basket. There are a million places you can put your video. Some are better than others. We launched TalkSport on CTV earlier this year. We're making it sound like it's really easy and simple to do this. It's really tough doing video. We have programmatic revenue, which we totally rely on through Google, and we try our best to get direct revenue from you guys, right? We try and give you everything you want to get that direct revenue. We make shows that I still don't think there's enough advertising going directly into video. I think it's quite easy just to run it through Google and all that. So it's not easy. And even for us, who's a big company, it's still a kind of weirdly new, shiny thing. We've got newspapers, radio stations, websites. A lot of money still flows in that direction. And by the time I retire, it'll probably all start coming to video and I won't get any credit. But it's tough. And I would imagine it's really tough if you're a small company or organization doing it, because scale is an important thing. I mean, that's not not great for everyone, but scale is quite important.
I mean, Tom, the big platforms YouTube have made lots of statements about podcasting over the last 12 months. Spotify have really pushed the introduction of video on creators. They really want people to put video content there. That's a challenge for all production operations, be it ones your size or smaller ones. It might be useful to just explain what Spotify are doing and what it means for one of your shows.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that ultimately, whether you're a YouTuber or a Spotify, you're now fighting against everyone. Your competitors aren't just in your niche or division. Spotify aren't up against Deezer anymore. It's against everyone's attention. And so they ultimately are coming back to that KPI of dwell time, right? They want you to be on the app for as long as possible. They know if you open the Spotify app and go listen to some Taylor Swift, you may stay on the app for between 4 and 7 minutes. But if you come onto a podcast, you can be there for, our sort of average watch time is over 40 minutes, listen time as well. And so we are then the natural home of, they want more of us because they want the attention, they want the eyeballs, they want the ears. And their switch in January was to move to video, to try and capture some of that attention and really to take on YouTube. And we went along with them. They co-sell our advertising with us. They wanted us to be a part of it. We wanted to jump in with both feet. We were already putting the videos on YouTube. It made sense for us to do that as well. It also is a real opportunity for us when they're saying we're going to only promote video podcasts on the platform now. So to make sure that we're going to win that editorial space, we also want to help them on that. But it does involve moving the entire organization over to producing video, and they are two different products. As I've said, we've got to make sure that it fits the platform and the content for it. Interestingly, for advertisers, if you are going to come and do a deal with us and you want to be seen on Spotify, you now have to go baked in. But that is interesting because the share of voice has massively increased. If you're a Spotify Premium subscriber and you go and watch one of our podcasts now, you won't be getting played the dynamically inserted advertising. And that is really exciting for some people to come along to own more of the podcast. If you take Sky, for example, on the Rest Entertainment at the moment, it's pre, it's mid, it's post. It's lots of different ways of getting integrated into the podcast and the editorial of it.
And it's presenter-led rather than spot ads.
It is, yeah, absolutely. And a little bit to Molly's point around the measurement piece, because we can show on your media plan lots of different ways of activating, we can then show lots of different ways of measuring as well. So you can still do dynamically inserted ads to reach people off platform if they're still listening on Apple, and you can pixel those. You can utilize Spotify ad analytics. You can then take it into AppsFlyer and work out, we still drive bottom of the funnel conversions for direct customer brands, and we can still show that we drive subscriptions for interesting products. But also then you can be in video across the platform. We can do brand lift studies with Nielsen and show that how you think about people's brands is really increasing. I think the best example of that, Monzo at the moment, sponsoring The Rest Is Money. They really come along to us to say, look, we've got a problem. We need to solve the issue that people only think of us as a consumer-facing bank, not as a business bank. And so raising the profile, talking about small businesses on the show, showing that Monzo's business banking offering is really interesting. That's coming through in the data, and it's really useful for them to take away to the rest of their marketing department saying, this works, actually. We're really reaching people who are the key decision makers in SMEs, and they can show the uplift on the brand study or wherever else they're testing it.
Molly, traditionally TV's been charged at a higher CPT or CPM rate. That's kind of music to the ears of audio and radio publishers. Do you think a lot of that extra value is going to be able to be attributed to podcast video?
Yeah, I think the measurement needs to be done first. It goes back to TV having all of the evidence that it should be charged at that more premium CPM, whereas we don't have that yet for podcast video. So I don't want to upset any podcast sellers, but we need to justification that it should be X times more expensive than just a standard host read. Is it providing X amount more value for your brand? I don't know yet.
Wait and see. Okay, I think we've just got a couple of minutes left for some last thoughts. You've got a room of brands and agencies. What last thing do you want to leave with them, Derek?
Well, Tom's boss last week, I thought, made a really interesting point we were talking about beforehand, which is I went to the US just before Christmas, and we were doing Piers Morgan's YouTube. We were struggling to get brands to get behind Piers Morgan, perhaps unsurprisingly. And over there, we felt the market there was a lot more evolved. Your boss, Tony, said this last week. They are they seem to be quite a lot ahead in terms of podcast direct advertising and podcast video podcast direct advertising over there. So I'd like to see us catch up with the United States in that way. They've cottoned on to the fact that it's a really powerful way of now, and I'd like to see us doing more in this country. I think we're behind the US, and I'd like to see that improve. Molly?
I think apart from the fact I definitely could listen to 40 minutes of Taylor Swift. That felt like a dig. Acos earlier spoke about omni-channel when it comes to podcasts, so looking at podcasts as video, as live shows, as the whole picture. I think that, but also looking at your media plan for audio in general, so your linear radio, your digital audio, your podcast, your video podcast, should all work together.
Tom?
If you are thinking of starting a podcast as a brand, don't. It can be really tempting to say like, oh, but we'll get to own the message and we'll get to do whatever we want and it'll be great because nobody's going to come and listen to it. I tell you now. Instead, come and work with us. We'll show you. We already have the audience. We have the scale. We have the reach. Our podcasts were downloaded 400 million times last year. If you want to work with us, we can show you how to still achieve your goals and you won't waste all that money on a podcast no one's going to listen to.
Jordan?
Mine would be respect intersectionality. So what I mean by that briefly is a lot of advertisers that I speak to, they say, right, we want to work with said content creator to reach X market, an X audience. And they do that, it's fine. So if we have a podcast that's 3 women, for example, talking about issues pertaining to women, they forget the fact that it might not just be women that want to listen to that podcast. So if I take, again, disability, 14 million people, don't just assume that it's just disabled people that want to hear that particular podcast. Think about the other people as well. And it goes to any kind of community. Don't just assume that, okay, this is our market, so this is our number. No, I like watching Loose Women as an example. Don't laugh, but I do sometimes. But I'm not a woman, but they wouldn't factor me in as the target audience. So just the intersectionalities of what people are into. People like to listen to things that you might not expect they like to listen to.
Great. If you can give a round of applause to Jordan, to Tom, to Molly, to Derek.